What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the TEPS podcast, aka the Everything Paranormal Show. And joining me tonight is a good friend of mine that I just met recently, and I hope we stay good friends because this guy is amazing. Justin Brown. We're going to get into him a little bit. I'm going to let him kind of describe some things because the man has got a big resume, and it may not be I'm not going to probably do it any justice, so I'm going to let him kind of explain some of that. But first, guys, real quick, I just wanted to give you some news before we get into it. Overlay of the show, guys. We got our guest here, Justin Brown, and we are going to talk about some stuff involving psychic phenomenon, and we're going to kind of define that a little bit for some of you, and also I'm going to let him explain kind of his quest on things, and we'll dive into all that. And then we're going to also, we got a story out of Paranormal Underground magazine for a werewolf sighting in Chicago. This is an older story, but it's been making the rounds here lately. A lot of people have been looking at credible stories and things like that. And also we got a group of hikers that took a photo in Chile and got photobombed by some type of potential spirit or ghost or demon, however you want to classify it. But it is kind of scary looking. I will take a look, or we're going to take a look at that. We're going to talk about that. And so, guys, with all that saying, and as far as any local news, tomorrow is the opening night for the first public investigation at Pleasant Hill that I'm going to be hosting. Again, Pleasant Hill Historical Home. They've asked me to host 4 events, the first 4 Thursdays in October, starting tomorrow. There's still some tickets left, I think. They're doing half off on opening night. I think there's a few spots left. So, guys, if you're in the Bristol, Virginia area, that's where it's going to be. I'm going to be there. My team is going to be, a couple of us on the team are going to be there tomorrow night for opening night. So, guys, that was really the big announcement. So if you're in that local area, to that Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia area, guys, go hit up the tickets. You can hit them up on Facebook. You can go to my Facebook as well. All right. So without further ado, I want to get going. So Justin Brown, welcome to the show. Tell the folks out there that may not know you a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me, Josh. I surely will try. My name is Justin, as you said. Back in 2013, I have a story that I'd like to flesh out as much as possible without taking up a lot of time.
No, go ahead.
So, not a whole lot of experiences fueled my reasoning for getting involved in paranormal research investigation, but I did have them in my early 20s. My mother is a special person. You can call her psychic, you can call her whatever. But she, her and along with her sister, grew up in like a 200 plus year old farmhouse here in southern Ohio. And they had told me the craziest stories that you hear on the internet. Okay. You know, anywhere from balls of light dropping out of the sky and dropping, childlike alien entities, playing with them in their yard, going on, these UFO adventures into space, to seeing ghosts, apparitions, all that type of stuff. My mom and her sister would tell me they experienced as a child. It scared the crap out of me, right?
Nice.
I was not about it. It was scary. It was interesting but scary because I would have to stay at this house, and I was always at the farmhouse, and it just freaked me out. So fast forward to about the early 90s. My mom and dad bought a house in town, which is like 6,000 people, in a town called Hillsboro, Ohio. It's about an hour drive east of Cincinnati, if you're familiar.
Okay.
And they bought the house from a firefighter and a family. He had built the house and raised his 2 boys with his wife for a while until they got it, maybe into middle school, I think. And they end up selling the house and moving outside of Hillsboro at a farmhouse. And, they rented it for a while until they sold it to my mom and dad. And it was a completely normal house. Nothing happened paranormal at all. About a year later, after he sold us the house, he had an unfortunate suicide where he found out that his wife was cheating on him, and he didn't take that well, so he decided to take his own life, which
Ugh.
was strange that right after that, things started happening in the house. Your
Mm,
typical stuff like hearing footsteps up the stairs, having that presence of being watched, all those things.
right.
So my dad it would drive him crazy trying to figure out who's going up and down the steps. He's thinking that it's got to be me and my brother trying to sneak out of bed or stand up or whatever. And when he'd go investigate it, he could never find us doing it. My mom would tell him, no, it's not the kids, it's the firefighter. And he's like, whatever, that's bullcrap.
Right.
So they would end up being divorced years later, probably when I was around 15, 16 years old. And it was a very abusive, dysfunctional family life that I pretty much endured. Me and my brother did. A lot happened, but we won't get into that. But the haunting, if you want to call it that, increased over time. When you watch the movies, it's not like Poltergeist the movie. It's not how it happens.
Right.
Things can, it could be months before you would see or experience or feel anything, right? So if you fast forward about 10 years, my mom and dad are divorced, and it's just me, my dad, and my now 2-year-old son living at the house. And one day, me and my son are upstairs, and he is too. He's just learning how to talk. He's just, forming sentences so he can, actually carry on a conversation. So he's starting to talk to me at this point. And he's telling me about this guy named John. And I feel like he's talking about my dad because his name's John. So I ask him, are you talking about your grandpa John? And he looks at me plainly and says, no, John R., he's dead. So it just so happens that the firefighter's name is John R. Vance. Okay. So I wish I could just, give justice to the mind screwing job that did to me. All the stories, all the experiences, all the stuff my mom said, everything that I kind of pushed off into that fringe of my awareness, like all that weird stuff's out there somewhere, but I have a barrier to where it can't impact me, right? I have my construct of what I think is real and what I think is going on. All that came crashing down in
Like
that
just
moment.
this crash of this weird cognitive dissonance thing, right? We're just
Right.
like, whoa.
Right.
Wow.
So there was cognitive dissonance there, but the stress immediately transitioned into there is no other possibility than someone had given him information about a man's name that took his life his name has not been spoken in over a decade.
Right. And a 2-year-old.
Yes. So he said it so nonchalant that I know that he has been speaking with or communicating or having some kind of relationship with whoever this is. I'm not going to say it was him because I can't prove that, but it was somebody claiming him at the very least. So my life changed. And, that coupled with other experiences later on, I had crazy experiences with Poltergeist. And if you watch the movie Poltergeist, I've seen all that stuff happen in real life. I've seen stuff fly across the room, stuff move on their own. I've seen a penny levitate an inch off a VHS player and rotate 180 degrees and sit back down like it was a UFO. Things flying across the air, TVs come on and off, phones that haven't been plugged in 20 years ringing, just everything. Seeing orbs and energy fields and the outlines of shadow people, everything. And even experiencing, what people would call psychic ability. So something's going on in my world.
Right.
So my dad dies in 2011 at the age of 54. 3 months before that, his mom passes away, and then 6 months before he dies, his dad passes.
Mm.
So both his mother and father die, and then he dies all in a 6-month period.
And he died young. That was young.
Yeah, very, very young. His heart exploded at work. He just dropped. He was dead before he hit the ground. So that kind of triple whammy of mortality check there really jarred me. So I just felt like I was next, right? Like I was the next one in line there. So I'm constantly thinking about death, life after death. What is there? I felt like there was a void in my own spiritual toolkit. Like, how am I going to cope with this?
Right.
Idea of mortality that you normally don't really focus in on until stuff like that happens, right? So that's right in the middle of paranormal pulp culture, paranormal TV. Ghost hunters, ghost adventures are full force at that time. So I'm like, hey, these guys are doing it. I can do it, right? I can
Right.
go take a recorder out in the woods or into the creepy building and ask the thin air questions. I can do that. So that's how I got started. I just researched the local group. I found some friends from grade school that I knew that were doing it. Jumped in with them. That lasted a whole few months. Got out of that and started doing my own thing because I kind of realized that I was basically needing to go my own route with it. But that's
Right.
basically my origin story. I mean, there's a whole bunch of details we can get into if you want, but that led me into trying to really, really dig into the idea of what's out there because I already know something's going on, but I don't quite know what it is. So there's ways to look at it, with critical thinking in mind. There's ways to look at it, scientifically, and then there's ways to look at it philosophically, and take a better look at consciousness and the psychic phenomena, and how it is involved in the paranormal. Because people have paranormal experiences, it seems like it's outside of science. Like science don't understand consciousness. Science doesn't understand a whole bunch of things that I feel like that is related to the paranormal.
Right.
But with that being said, there's a lot of things that science is looking at, like quantum mechanics, things being at two places at one time, things being entangled and connected against vast distances without any connection or time lapse in between of exchange of information.
Right. The difference, though, is that when they study quantum physics, they call it science. When we study paranormal, they call it pseudoscience. And they still can't get everything right on dark matter and all that stuff right now either. And they can't reproduce every single thing like that they try to say with paranormal. You can't reproduce it in the science. So I just think it's funny that they kind of blow off a lot of
There
things.
is cynicism involved and there's gatekeeping involved with the scientific community.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't debate that really. They could try to debate it, but if Darwin was still alive and he was making money off his theory of evolution, and someone came along and completely, dismantled it and found evidence that would, not support his theory, that would cause problems. So you have to closely examine why gatekeeping happens and why people protect certain belief systems and dogmas.
Oh
You
yeah.
have to be skeptical of those things.
Oh yeah. So okay, so you realize that you had to kind of do your own thing, and then so that own thing. Let's. I want to hear you talk a little bit. You talked a little bit before show of that path you were sort of trying to sort of go down in general, and so I'd like you to talk about that. I think that would be interesting for people to understand where you're trying to go and the direction and what you're trying to pull together.
Wow, this is a lot to unpack, but I'm going to try.
That's all.
We could probably do 100 shows and still not unpack it all, but basically what I saw initially was all the pseudoscience involved with the stuff you see on paranormal TV. I'm not going to bash people, doing ghost hunting as a hobby. I think it's completely fine and moral thing to do. I think people are allowed to go out and have fun and emulate what they see and on TV. It's perfectly fine. But it's not for me. I need some type of effort involved with actually understanding the equipment I'm using, why I'm using it, and understanding the methods I'm using and why I'm doing that. I have an obsession with understanding how things work, or at least trying to be honest about what we don't understand and what we can understand. Because a
Right.
lot of what we're doing is just anomaly hunting. We don't know how to find evidence of life after death because we don't even know if it exists. So you can't find evidence for things that we don't know exists. You can't do that. Like we can find evidence for things that we know exist by, using science and the scientific method. But since we can't prove that, there's life after death, then science really can't help us. But what science can do is drive us towards, a methodology that uses critical thinking. So if we can eliminate all the things that aren't paranormal, all the methods that can't help us find out if EVP is real, if apparitions are actually being seen and captured, all these things, I feel like if we do that, we can get closer to understanding or at least clearing the misty nature of what we believe the paranormal field is. How do we do that? Knowing how recorders work, knowing what they're good at, what they're not good at, what recorder to use and how to use it, right? How the cameras work, how to use the camera properly. Once I got into the field about 5 years in, I was like, okay, I'm just going to use all my audio engineering background, my photography background, my filmmaking background. I'm going to put all that in there and try to, engage and network with the community and see what happens. Well,
Right.
it's rough because mostly what people do is a spiritual practice. Most what people do, they have a belief that you use the term cognitive dissonance. That is a term everybody in the field should know about because psychology is an important thing to know and understand in the paranormal field.
Oh yeah.
Why is that? Well, the one main tool we use is our bodies, our brains, our eyes, our senses. So if you need to use those to figure out what is real and what is true, you need to know what tricks can be played on your senses, how your mind works, how psychology works, all that. So I went into all that, how to understand psychology, how to understand all the equipment, how to understand that all the stuff we're seeing on TV is just for entertainment. If you really
Right.
want to investigate and if you really want to research it, seriously, you got to do all those things, which bridges, it creates a wedge in between you and the community that wants to just have fun and wants to fuel their own
Right.
beliefs rather than challenge their beliefs and look at it objectively. So
And I
that's what I'm doing.
and I would interject in there too and just say that you're right. And generally speaking, I've always said that there's about like I don't know, like 4 levels of investigating. Right. You got like your just basic ghost hunting stuff. Then you can kind of go the notch up, and I start talking about when you get into actual paranormal investigations, which, in my opinion, are when you're actually trying to help people. It doesn't necessarily have to be full on scientific. It's more of a spiritual journey, more of helping people, sometimes psychology or debunking a lot of things. And then, but ultimately, you're going to get up to that 4th level, which could be straight up just like science. Like you're not really involved in any kind of entertainment. You're not out trying to really per se have fun at ghost hunting type stuff. You're
Zero
strictly
fun.
right. Like, and that highest level is for people, maybe even yourself, if you consider yourself like in that highest level of like, hey, I'm trying to take the scientific route the best I can, and that's my passion. And some people, like I said, some people are more scientists, some people are more entertainers, and some people are more thrill seekers. It just in a little bit of everything. Just like I tell people all the time, like, look, I do a show. I don't fake things. That's what holds me back. If I fake things, I probably would be even higher up on the ladder when it comes to the world of paranormal and popularity. But it's not a popularity contest. I enjoy doing the shows and having it be as entertaining as possible. But I'm not trying to pass it off as this is facts. I caught something for sure. This is science here, and I'm not trying to prove those things. So I think there's a place for all that. I think for in your case, I can see what you're talking about because in the paranormal world, a lot of people want that entertainment. They want to believe. They want an illusion sometimes, and sometimes debunking and science can break those illusions, and people are just like, I can't handle that. I can't. No, I want to believe that my this and that. It just can cause rifts, even though your mission is very positive, in my opinion. Like, you are really trying to get down to some scientific answers.
Right. It's I always say that when you're watching a show or even a podcast, whatever it is, you're trying to take a break from the grind of your work, your day job, or whatever you do. You're trying to escape in those times. And you don't need Justin the science guy telling you that your brain is working against you and everything that you believe is wrong. You know what I'm saying? So, and when you spent, $10,000-$20,000 on all your gear to go to Waverly Hills Sanitarium, you know, you're wanting to have fun and you're wanting to escape from your grind and you're wanting to do a hobby. But when you start to get serious about it, it's really work. And when you look at it for what it is, it's the hardest thing that anybody would ever do is to try to answer these questions we're looking at.
Oh yeah, and it's almost like the task of literally trying to science it is very very difficult, and that's why I commend you on your efforts. And I think, what would you say out of your experience? How would you define now? Again, this is, let's say, non-scientific, right? Let's just go with your gut. Let's go with your observations, just you being in the field and, as you say, the witness to things. What to you is the most solid, I would say, evidence for yourself that there's something beyond?
Other than my son telling me the names of dead people.
Yes, I mean, but what for you, has there even been something solid for you? Have you?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
all
Oh
right,
yeah. The experiences.
right. So, what do you think? What's the best for you?
Seeing things levitate, seeing, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. So I am living in my first son I have with a woman before I was married to Christy. I have two kids with Christy. I have my oldest son with a woman I did not marry that I was dating before my wife now. And I lived at her brother's house, my first son's mother's brother's house here in Hillsboro. And there's seemingly nothing weird about it, but when I moved in, everybody was telling me that they had been experiencing this ghost of the house. And my the brother of this girlfriend I had was an extreme alcoholic, and he would get drunk in fits of rage and just like spout off at this entity and like challenge it, and it would throw things. It was a full-on poltergeist case. Like, if you would look at a classic parapsychology, poltergeist case, this was it.
Right.
So, fixing food at the stove, barbells would roll across the room and hit me, TV on and off. Okay, so one night I'm trying to sleep in a guest bedroom. And I can't sleep. I can't figure out why, so I'm tossing and turning. And then I feel, never felt this quite intense before, I feel like I'm being watched. Like there is someone in the room right now. So I flip on the light, look, no one there. I'm like, huh. So that goes on about an hour. Then I start hearing a low frequency hum, like a electrical noise, right?
Right.
So I'm like, what's that? I look outside. I'm trying to find like the transformer that's buzzing. I'm trying to find a receptacle or something electrical. Nothing. And this thing won't let me sleep, whatever it is. I know it's something, but I can't see it. So I would get fed up. 4 or 5 in the morning, I would pack up the girlfriend and my youngest boy and head to my mom's, which is in the adjacent county. And I would stay there. This went on about 3 nights. So I got fed up and I just stayed up there. I was done. So I'm already used to being up all night. So I'm watching TV at like, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And my girlfriend's like, there's someone outside looking at me through the window. And we're in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, dude. Cornfields for
Right.
miles, pig farms. I'm like, there's no way there's anybody out there. So I go out there. Nope, no one's out there. Go back to sleep. Next night, same thing, same exact time. So I'm like, okay, I go in there and I flip on this lamp. And the lamp's not bright. So it's very dim in the room, but I can see what looks like you're looking through water. There is some type of wavy diffraction of light in this mass floating like this in the middle of the room. So I'm like, oh, what the hell? That's weird. And before I can question it any further, my mom told me a story of these orbs of light that would fly through the field and freak out the dog, and they would come into the house, and I thought she was crazy. You know, her story. She's so many stories, dude. I can sit here and tell you 4 weeks about this stuff. Okay,
Right.
so I'm thinking it's typical mom. She's crazy, right? Well, no. Here comes the orbs. They flood into the room, dozens of them. They start encircling this thing, and it seemed like it neutralizes it. All right, it stops floating up and down, and then it moves past me out of the room and to the right through the doorway where I can't see it. And then after a second, it comes back in partially and peeks at me and then goes away. Kind of like saying, hey, are you coming?
Right.
Without saying it. So I go out there, turn to my right, go into the kitchen, and then I see it float into my mom's room. So I follow it. And it's there hovering in my mom's room. So I say, well, this is my opportunity to step into this thing to see if it's actually something.
Right.
So I step into it, and it feels like a hot and cold, like you just dipped your whole body into a vat of icy hot. And it's that static charge all over me. Everyone's that's been to places or have had experiences with those things knows what I'm talking about. It feels like spider webs that you just walk through. It's exactly like that, and then it just dissipated. And of course, my mom had somebody come over. They cleansed the house and sent it back to where it came from down in Hillsboro, and the rest is history. But that right there, after talking to the other roommates down the house, telling me they saw the exact same thing without me telling them, collaborating all of it, just tells me without having something, some scientists pop onto PBS saying, yep, ghosts are real, God's real, all this stuff, angels, demons, and everything in between's real. You can go to bed tonight. I don't need that because there's no way to explain. Science cannot touch this.
Right.
And the reason why is the brain is an antenna, and it sometimes the bandwidth that it receives gets larger, and you will feel, see, and experience things within a much larger bandwidth.
Have you got into like the brain frequencies,
Oh yeah,
and Schumann
I've been down
resonance?
every rabbit hole you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, I just was throwing that out there because I figured you had, and just to tell the viewers too. It's I think that's what you were kind of alluding to without going into details, was that sort of spiritual network of frequencies and things between your head.
Yeah, I got a hold of, not too much longer after that, I got a hold of a brainwave generator using audio frequencies, and I was able to induce rapid eye movement and see things and increase psychic phenomena quite a bit. But it freaked me out, so I stopped doing it and never done it since.
Well, you might have to talk about that another time too, because that'd be pretty cool. I'll have to talk about some of that too. I love those type of experiments sometimes, but no, I think for me, over all the years and all the investigations and all the places I've been to, I think for me now, I will say out of all the equipment, I'm very much I've rarely had photos that I kind of like. I always chalk it up to matrixing, things like that. Video, I've had a few over the years. I've had some dark shadows that's kind of blocked out some light sources and things like that. But I will say the thing that I've had the most, in my opinion, of the closest evidence possible is EVPs. Now, I'm also very picky on my EVPs. I don't necessarily like to hear Class C or even like Class B EVPs and then just say, "Oh, that's definitely something." I do feel like there can be some of that pareidoia and stuff in there as well. But when I get words and I get Class A or even some decent side of Class B, I gotta say, I feel like that. I've been in controlled environments, my own home, where all the power was turned off, and I've told this story in the past. I'm not going to go into details, but I've shut down my whole house, did EVP sessions, and had children and man and adult male yelling on the recording.
Have you caught one doing a live stream yet?
Um, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't think I've had anybody
Would you like? I
come
have
back.
I have a clip on one of my shows of the craziest, clearest voice. If you want to check it out.
Oh, we'll have to definitely check that out for sure. I'll have to check it out for sure because again, like I said, it's and I had one that I've got a special little behind the scenes, like Paraflix actually reached out to me and they were like, they questioned it, like not to question my integrity because they knew that I don't fake stuff, but the CEO was like, because I have a series on Paraflix, so the CEO came in and she heard the CVP and was like, is that real? Like it was because this woman was laughing. It was such a loud laugh, and it was caught not only on the main camera, it was caught on the H1N Zoom recorder that was on the mantle, and her volume is louder than me and the other investigator.
It's
And,
probably a disembodied voice. Then
and
it
it,
was an EVP.
well, and I just call it an EVP, but yeah, she's laughing, and it was on both devices. So I timestamp. I did a behind the scenes thing, but it was so good, and it was clearly a woman, and sends chills whenever you hear them when you're reviewing your evidence, and you hear a voice, you hear a word, you hear somebody say something, and it's something, and not just a
Right.
I don't like the stupid ones like the you know I want, like, when I hear something and it's like, yeah, like, oh my God, then the hair stand up on the back of your neck and you're like, and that's been, to me, that's been the most solid out of video and pictures and all that stuff. Audio, for some reason, it seems as if spirits can manipulate the white noise, and you can tell, like, anybody that listens to enough audio, just like I'm sure you can vouch for this, when you're listening in your headphones and you're listening and you're reviewing, there's like these layers, and you can hear the white noise, and when you hear that spirit, it's as if it's using the white noise to communicate, versus somebody, when you have, and I've experimented with this, as I'm sure you have, when you have somebody whisper something in a room, just as an experiment, you're like, hey, whisper something, I'm dead, whatever. You have them say something, and then when you listen to it, it sounds like it's in the room. It sounds like it's a different layer. It's not like an EVP. So that's why I'm a very big fan of actual EVPs, if you know what I mean.
Yep. I've nerded out for years over the audio aspect of things, and it seems like that's the most prominent anomaly that we are able to get, because the visual stuff isn't as prominent. There's something with how light interacts with what we're thinking is there is
Right.
not, as prevalent, or doesn't work as far as how things manifest quite as well as voice phenomena. What's more intriguing to me is hearing the voice without anything, with just your naked ears, recording it. Sure, great, you have validation of it, but it's vibrating the air in the atmosphere for you to hear. How's it doing that, right? How is it moving things physically? How is whatever it is interacting with our physical reality?
Right.
Energy, right? There's some type of energy field doing this. And I actually find, because I have very complex, complicated audio setups to determine if it's, electronic voice phenomena, or what, just regular, acoustic energy, which is, vibrating the air, to the point where the transducers and the microphones can pick them up, because they're designed to induce a signal that's created by compression waves in the air. That's how mics work. And it's, transduced into an electric signal, and voila, you can either amplify it and play it over a PA, or record it on some type
Right.
of media. But what I have found, that 99.9% of everything I've recorded is all acoustic energy. What's strange is we don't hear most of it. And a lot of people will say, well, it's probably the frequency. And I'm like, no. Any audio engineer will tell you the human hearing range is pretty obvious. 20, kilohertz to 20,000 if you're young, and it diminishes as you get older. So if something is below 20 or above 20K, you're not hearing it. Even if it's on a recording, you're just not hearing it because you can't. It's physically impossible.
Right.
So why can't you? There's two theories that I have. One is you're filtering it out. You know, the joke about the husband having selective hearing with the
Right.
wife? That's a real thing when it comes to everything we're perceiving all the time. Okay. We hear a very small percentage of what's going on. We even pay attention or even conscious to only a minute portion of what's going on. When you're driving, you can zone out and not really pay attention to anything. If you know your daily commute, you're
Right.
on autopilot. All this stuff going on, you don't know what's going on. You know, people are talking in the background, these noise and the fans in the background. You're not conscious of it unless we mention it, right? So I have a recording of my mom hearing something at a location that I'm investigating and filming, and she turns to me and asks me if I'm hearing it. I'm like, no, I don't hear it. On the playback, it's plain as day, but it's
Right.
on all the audio equipment. It's redundant through all the lav mics and the shotgun mics, so it's acoustic energy. It's in the
Right.
air. So why didn't I hear it? Well, the theory is that we're not always conscious, either through the normal mechanism of how our consciousness works and senses work, or maybe we're protecting ourselves. Maybe we could be filtering out some things. On the other side of it, there could be some phenomena that's more like, you know, it's there's a term in audio engineering. It's where if something's played, or if there's an audio that's at like 21,000 hertz, but you're sampling it at a rate of 11K, it's I'll come up with the term with it later. It's escaping me now, but you can use the octave down and sample it and hear it where you couldn't normally hear it with your ears because it's above the range.
Right.
But it's interesting to think that there is audio that we can only hear through our recorders, or even our ears if it's at a different frequency because of math. Okay, because of the frequency ranges and octaves and how that works. It gets nerdy, so I won't go into it. But there's science behind it. There's ways to look at it logically to make sense of why we can't hear, and then we're hearing it on recorders. But the whole psychic thing, I don't want to leave this portion of the show without touching on the psi behind all of this. Okay, I feel like everyone has psi ability. It's a completely natural thing, whether it's been, you know, de-evolved of our species, or some people have
agree.
it, some people don't. It's there. Okay.
I agree. I agree.
Magnetic senses. Animals use magnetic senses. I have theories behind why people see shadow figures. If you look into Cry4 and why insects and birds can see the magnetic field lines to navigate true north, they can see it because of quantum mechanics of Cry4 proteins in their eye. Humans have it, but they're low, and you can only see such phenomena at low light. So that's why birds fly and navigate early morning times, because they can see the field lines. Anyway, the psi ability is got to be the main thing we need to look at. Consciousness and how we're able to use some sense outside the five to perceive these things, whether it be dreams, prophetic dreams, whether it be that gut feeling that you have, whether it be whatever, sight, feeling
Right.
something, you know, getting that download from the universe telling you something, to whatever it is. I feel like the more we understand the psi phenomena, the more we'll understand what hauntings are, what
Absolutely.
paranormal phenomena is.
Absolutely. And to even back you up even further, you know, when you look back at some of the very first written history of the first cultures, like the Sumerians, for example, and I just talked about this, I think, even on the last podcast, but I wanted to use it, a little bit of it, to back you up. And they talked about in some of the very first written text of, you know, when humans were writing cuneiforms and tablets, right? The very first written history of the Sumerians and stuff, they were talking about ghosts and demons. They were seeing them everywhere. So, as you were talking about, maybe things had diminished. Well, we have written histories where we visually were seeing these things. like commonly, we had the sight a lot, at least thousands of years ago, right? So maybe over time, as you say, that selective hearing, selective sight, over time, people just kind of, as they conquered, because they were getting into casts and or spells and rituals, and they were combating things too. So maybe as they sort of defeated some of these ghosts and demons over time, we stopped having a need to see them, and we didn't want to see them, and we started to stop seeing them.
How many
So,
cases have you been involved with where children, young children, are seeing things,
oh yeah, all the time.
but at certain ages it goes away, or near-death experiences?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, and I'm not dear.
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation.
Right.
Sorry, the
Two to,
young
two to five.
children.
2 to 5 years old
Yeah. So
is the range.
are we just basically programming it out of our minds because of our materialist beliefs?
Well, and I think they were talking about, was it is it Dr. Jim Baker, the University of Virginia, uh, was studying that, with reincarnation, and was finding a lot of kids 2 to 5, once they start school, they start school in their minds. It's the same thing when we look back. We hardly have any memories past kindergarten or anything like that, but once we start getting involved socially, school and all that, there's this other consciousness that seems to, and you start fading memories. Now, whether or not you're reincarnated, an actual, soul reincarnation, or whether you're spirit body reincarnation, I think there's a difference as well. I believe in spirit body reincarnation. I think we're all our own unique souls, so I don't think our souls get reincarnated. But I have a lot of evidence to show that there's potential for spirit body. Actually, talk about it in my book. So, have you wrote a book yet?
Not yet.
Oh, you got to write a book. Everybody that follows Justin, pressure him to write his book. Got to write his book.
I have a problem. I don't know if I'm able to write a book that people are going to want to read that's between 600 to 1,000 pages, because the book I want to write is probably bigger than Tolkien's work.
Just write it. Just write it. Just take a little look.
I don't want to write something that someone will look at me like, no.
No. Just
Josh,
take
they're going to say no to a trillion pages.
20 minutes a day or something set aside.
Oh, I don't have an excuse. My problem is like dialing it back and just writing something that, people are going to want to read through and actually get something from. That's what I need to figure out.
Just write it, and then we'll see. I'm telling you.
You're
but
right.
Guys, get them to do it. Get them to do it.
Yes. Just nag me every day.
Shameless promotion. My Paranormal, A Guide to the Spirit Realms. That's my book. It's like,
well, the first books I would probably write is
200 pages. It's
just
like
talking about, people would probably be really interested in the stories of my experiences.
Right.
And, my mother's a whole entire novel series, dude. My mom.
Talk about the beginnings, and then another book, talk about your theories. You can break them up, but I'm just telling you, you need to do it. You need to do it. You're a smart guy, and you got a lot of stories, and there's no reason why you can't. So, and you could put that on your resume, because you have a long list of accomplishments that you're racking up, and you can make yourself an international selling author. So just do it. Just do it. I'm pushing you on that one. But all right. So guys, we're going to wrap up that main segment. We're going to transition into, and I want to transition into, because with Justin, and his scientific style background, I'm going to lead into, I want to cover this story. This is about a photograph. So we were just talking about audio. Now I want to get into a little bit of the photo science of things. So I think this will be kind of cool for Justin to get into as well. So I'm going to bring this article up. And guys, this is from Paranormal Underground Magazine. If you have not gotten a subscription to Paranormal Underground Magazine, go to paranormalunderground.net. Tell them Josh sent you. You're going to get a year for free. It's going to come to your email fully. I mean, this is a fully, look at this, guys. I mean, look at this. This is a fully illustrated articles. These guys have been around for a long time now. I know the owners now. Just so good. So good. This is so many articles, so many fun things. So guys, check them out. Oh, look, and there's my podcast in there. But But yeah, guys, these guys are amazing. They have all kinds of stuff. So we're just gleaning a few little headlines for the fun, right? So we can talk about some more stuff. So this one is about mountain hikers in Chile spot ghostly figure in selfie. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to bring up the image for you. I've got the image right here blown up. A group of hikers in Chile made a startling discovery after reviewing a selfie they took on a mountain trail. The reports went to the mirror.co.uk, of course. The photo shared on the Ghosts of London Facebook group appears innocent at first glance. However, upon closer inspections, viewers noticed a mysterious sixth figure between two women in the image. The original poster explained, "A friend of mine sent me this picture from his group of friends in Chile. In the background, the hiker's selfie shows the eerie face with visible nose and mouth features. The discovery has since gone viral, gathering thousands of likes and numerous comments." Okay, so I'm going to bring this over here, and we'll that way you guys can see a much better version there. Can maybe even zoom in just a little bit more if you guys want. So, Justin, what do you? So, let me just get your thoughts. What is your takeaway on this? What are you thinking? You think this is a fake? Do you think this is just pareidoia, or matrixing? What do you think?
I think it's an actual person.
Okay.
Let me tell you why.
Go ahead. Yeah. I mean,
you can see their hair.
Okay.
And their head. If you look between the blonde and the dark-haired girl on the left in the middle,
up here,
right in between there is the head of the person sticking their face in there.
Right.
Okay, you're going to see the zipper of the man on the left. On the left zipper, it's orange. Okay, follow it down. Right there is the head of the person.
Yeah, you can almost see her hairline.
That's the hair of the person. Right, it's an actual person.
Okay.
That's what it is, in my opinion.
All right. So you don't think that this is anything malevolent, no spirit. This is probably just somebody that they just are not admitting that is there, or do you think they're just trying to fake something? What about paranormal laundering? Now, I use this term. I coined this term. So anybody uses it out there, I coined this term, paranormal laundering. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Justin, I'm going to explain it real quick. Paranormal laundering, it's just like money laundering, right? You have dirty money, you want to make it clean. Well, in the paranormal world, when you want something to be legit, you pass it through this paranormal laundering process. Basically, like, how many times have you seen somebody say, "Oh, it's got to be real because these are just hikers. They have nothing to do with paranormal."
I hate this analogy with every fiber of my being. I hate it.
They do this all the time. They're like, "Oh, well, he has a fishing channel and he caught Bigfoot in the distance," and you know what I mean? And then they say it's got to be legit because
who says that though? Who are the people? Stream. Who are they? Who's saying this?
Well, the viewers, you know what I mean? The viewers will stand up and say, "Oh no, that's not fake. It's got to be real because they were on a live stream." And so, but what I'm saying is that these people, maybe not these specific people, but like a lot of these people will fake the video. They're like, "Hey, it would give us a viral video if we had like Bigfoot in the background. We played it off as if we were you know what I mean? Like we were fishing, doing our normal fishing videos."
Mm-hmm.
But it's a way for them to make it seem real because they don't have a paranormal channel. Like if you have a paranormal channel and like you're posting, Bigfoot or ghost videos all the time and stuff like that, and then people are be like, "Man, he's probably faking it," because like every video is like capturing a ghost and blah blah blah. So it's not a big deal. Josh Bender said Bigfoot is real. Yeah, we're not denying that Bigfoot's real or fake. We're just using this as when we're talking about photos and people faking.
He's just saying that because he is Bigfoot.
Right. But no, so that's why I coined the term paranormal laundering. It's just when people try to wash it through like a system where they just try to say, "Oh no, it's legit because it was on a live stream." Even though, look, we know it's like fake. You can tell when things get fake.
I don't think this is fake. The first thing I would do was try to contact the people in the photo and verify that it is them and verify, hey, Did you submit this photo, or did you give this, website or this news media group permission to use the photo under the pretense that it has something unexplained in it? And then go
Right.
from there. Because a lot of times they'll just search the web to find stuff like this and be like, oh, we found a photo with a creepy face in the shadows. We're just going to spin this.
Right.
That's 99.9% of the stuff we find.
Right. And I think too, if you look at the coloring of her face, and you can even look at the hair and the hair over here, you can tell that the camera they're using just for this type of setting and lighting is just kind of giving a little more greenish hue to these.
Yeah, it's probably a cell phone, rear facing camera, so they can compose the shot with using the screen. And the low, like you said, the low light's going to be garbage, but it is what it is. It's uploaded to the internet, so the quality is even lower. But that right there is an actual person's face.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I mean, it's creepy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, she looks kind of creepy, but
sure.
But I mean, it's a cool photo. I'm not going to say it's not cool, but is it evidence? Is it proof? No, and I believe you're right. I think it is, because even up here where the lighting's hitting the top of her head,
that's the top of the head of the person.
Right. And you can see that the coloring is even a little better up top, just like
they could be wearing a hat, or that could be their hair. You don't know.
I think it's the hair. If you really look at it, you can almost see a part line right here.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think they have a top part line right there.
That's definitely
at least that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if it translates on your side, but but yeah, you can kind of try to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I think this looks like a part line right here, because it's not perfect, but it looks like a hairline. But I agree. I think that's a good take. And so, what about your experience in overall photography on this type of stuff, like matrixing?
Well, what people call matrixing is a part of psychology. There's a term. Apophenia is, and pareidolia is the way the mind works when it comes to seeing patterns.
Right.
The brain is really good at pattern forming when you're looking at things. If you look in your background there, those trees, if you look hard enough, or in the sky and the clouds, if you look hard enough, you'll make out patterns that aren't actually there. Faces in wood grain, animals in the clouds, so on and so forth. Your brain is actually designed to do that, and there's a reason why. And there's a lot of scientific study behind it for years. When you are born, your baby, it is crucial that your baby identifies the mother right as it's being born. So it's designed to look for the eyes and the face and to recognize and put the voice and the body with their mother for survival and for nurturing and brain development. It's very well known that that's why the brain does that. So you're constantly using that ability, over and over every day for pattern recognition. So when you're looking at photos and you're like, I'm trying to find something anomalous in these photos, I'm trying to find my ghost that I believe in, apophenia and pareidolia are a thing. It is what it is. So what can we do about it? Well, for one, stick a GoPro on top of the hot shoe or cold shoe mount of your camera, or if you're using your phone, just take video. Don't take photos ever, because photos it gives you bad data. Video gives you way more data. It gives you audio with your video. You get 30 to 60 frames per second versus 1.
And I would even add to that too, if for those of you that maybe are amateur DSLR users, shoot both in raw and JPEG. You can shoot both, and most people don't process raw, but it will give you the raw files, and the raw files aren't compressed like JPEGs. So you get a lot more data. And so if you ever needed to go back in and really pull up like that photo there, if there was a raw version, let's just say, I know it's probably a camera, a cell phone, but if it was taken, like just say with raw file as well, you could go into that raw file into like a good program and actually probably see a lot more detail. So
especially in the shadows.
Yeah, so all my, I have like so many raw photos. Like I shoot both JPEG and RAW. So like every time I download like my photos and stuff like that, which I don't do a lot of photos, but I'm just saying like I always have like duplicates. It's like I got so much crap on my computer, but I just never know. It's like, what if? And then, if that happens, then I want to have that raw, file. So anyways, all right, so let's move on to our next story. Guys, we're going to get this last story in real quick. And this is going to be about werewolves. So this will be a fun little thing. I just thought this would be another fun topic. A recent report submitted to the Singular Fortean Society by Chicago resident Annie Kleminski has sparked interest in the paranormal community. Kleminski claims to have witnessed a werewolf while driving on South Lakeshore Drive in early morning hours of March 8th, 2016. I don't want to sound like a nut, but I'm sure many, if not most of the messages you receive begin this way, Kleminski wrote. She described the creature as naked. Actually, you know what? We're going to go to her description. So I have her little description right here. I live on the north side of Chicago, but since I 96 for steel mill in the area, Gary, Indiana, blah, blah, blah. So I was traveling to Chicago to Gary on South Lakeshore Drive near the 31st Street when I had to slow down after catching something out of the corner of my left eye. I'm very careful at that hour to watch for animals and for teenagers who might be hanging around by the lake doing teenager things and then stumbling invincible across the road. I had heightened alert this morning because of the weather. My Facebook post when I arrived at work even mentions that the high that day for Chicago was going to be 67 degrees, very warm for Chicago on a March 8th time of year that still sees blizzard conditions. What I saw was a naked adult, fair-haired white male lope across the road. Uh-oh. We lost, oh no. We lost Justin. There's Justin.
Sorry about that.
That's
it
okay.
was a rookie move.
I was like, oh no, we lost Justin. Okay, so let's backtrack just slightly. It was a naked, full-grown man with his body contorted into the gait of a canine and moving at a good clip. At the time, I remember saying to myself, I just saw a fucking werewolf. I checked the moon trope for werewolves, and it was actually a new moon. I posted on Facebook when I arrived at work. I told a coworker, and he asked, like many after him, why didn't you call 911? And say what? Sorry, busy 911 operator. I just saw possibly a transitioning werewolf, naked dogman lope across South Lakeshore Drive. So she's got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to go back just to finish this here. Despite extensive research, Kleminski has yet to find any concrete evidence supporting her claim. So, and I guess she also said, I want to understand what I saw and have to validated similar experiences if possible. And of course, there's been a lot of explanations. One of them was a possibility of even such as Unner-Tan syndrome and substance abuse. Now, for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with Unner-Tan syndrome, and this is something with people that do a lot of cryptid studies, is the syndrome where you're pretty much like if you've ever seen people that run around like dogs, okay, there is an actual syndrome that is involved when people are walking on all fours and there's some IQ symptoms and things like that. So if you're not familiar with that, that's why I want to explain what Unner-Tan syndrome was. So could that be a possibility? I mean, absolutely, that you could have a naked man with Unner-Tan syndrome. It was warmer that evening in Chicago and could have been out, maybe drugs involved. I don't know. Where do you stand on something like this with cryptids and maybe even this story?
So I've interviewed a lot of folks, listened to a lot of stories. Of course, after everybody at your job finds out that you're into the paranormal, they tell you their stories and then they ask you questions. So Bigfoot, werewolves, all the cryptid stuff, most of the time people are seeing something fleetingly, like on the side of the road as they're driving, in the distance, in the tree line. Sometimes it's rare, though, they actually see it like up close personal for long enough. Okay. Most of the time, those are UFO abductions when you hear those stories, and that counts. Rarely are they werewolves and Bigfoot, but they are out there. So, what do I think about it? People are seeing something for sure. They're experiencing it. They're not lying. Most of the people, why in the hell would they lie about it? Of course, if you get somebody that's crazy and that wants to inject themselves in the paranormal and just tell a story, sure. But what this person saw, they believed it was something. And it was definitely out of the norm. There's no way to know. I have never had an experience where I thought I saw a cryptid, but I know that there's stuff out there that we can't explain. There's probably some undocumented bipedal animal. It's very possible that that's going on, especially in remote mountainous regions or in any vast wilderness where there's not a whole lot of people,
Yeah.
hanging out, unless you're a tourist or a hiker, a camper, or a hunter, which is usually what the people are seeing these things, right? I definitely believe it's very possible that there is physical things out there that are people seeing, but I also believe that, like we've been saying, there seems to be a tendency for reality to not be so real. You know what I mean, Josh?
Oh yeah.
So once everybody gets over that reality isn't as real as they think it is, we'll start being open to the fact that we are seeing things, hearing things, and feeling things that aren't explainable by material methods.
Yeah. And I agree with a lot of that too, because and if you try to put the whole picture together sometimes just to go even deeper, right? When you look back at multiple cultures, not just one, we're not talking about one history of a culture.
They've been seeing it.
They talk about hybrid creatures.
They've been seeing it.
Everything from the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greek, culture,
Yep.
the Bible, even in Christianity, talk about Nephilim. So it's, if you look back and then you also couple that with something that maybe is also based on reality.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about what's something that is epic. Gorillas, right? Gorillas are epic, right? Now, gorillas they did not exist. We believed that they were mythical creatures up into within the last 200 years. They were not something that was been known about for thousands of years and all that. The gorilla, as much as common as we look at the gorilla nowadays, and we know about them and they're exposed and we have them in zoos now, but the gorilla was not known up until just under a few hundred years ago. They were thought to be myths and all this other stuff. There was whispers of them and things like that. And finally they were discovered eventually. But when you just think about the thousands of years that mankind existed and gorillas escaped records up to these last few hundred years, and then you couple that with even the stories of us with hybrid creatures in multiple cultures thousands of years ago, there's a real possibility that some of these creatures still can be existing out there, and whether they are some type of Bigfoot, where it's like some type of ape human type creature, whether it's some type of dog man, mothman, werewolf type of creature, I would say that the possibility is real.
Especially things like Gigantopithecus and stuff like that, the bipedal ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why not? Why, and so Josh Bender, we are defending Bigfoot in that sense. But why not? That's what I'm saying. Like, if you just look at, why would all of these past civilizations, why would they lie? Like, what would be the purpose? I mean, and they put effort. It's not like they just sat down on a computer and typed it out. I mean, they had to chisel this stuff into cuneiforms and tablets and hieroglyphs, paint, cave paintings, everything else. I mean, they put effort into this stuff to tell the stories.
Sure.
So
they realized that if they wanted to preserve, the information and the knowledge, they had to record it in a way that would hang around.
Yeah, important things. If you look at what a lot of times they reported, I mean, sometimes there was the occasional like, "Hey, I was here,"
Hmm.
kind of old fashioned
Yeah,
graffiti.
just a handprint, or hey, this is what I killed for dinner tonight, and this is my son, and he came with me, and this is my wife who cooked the meal, and all that. Sure.
Right. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting. I don't know if she saw, and I have to say that I believe she felt like her instinct when she saw it, and she said, "Hey, didn't I just see a werewolf?" Uh, I'm sure she probably really felt that way.
The brain doesn't handle lack of information in certain categories when you're looking at something, especially women who are on high alert all the time for things that could harm them or overpower them because they're constantly afraid or concerned and trying to defend themselves against that kind of stuff. Like my wife hates going into the woods, hates bugs, hates mice. That's typical, right? Because it's a normal thing. So if you thought you saw something and you can't quite, make sense of what you saw, your mind is going to do sometimes irrational things, sometimes rational things, but you didn't get a really good look at it. So you got to be careful of what the brain has a tendency to do in those situations. With that being said, some people do actually see something freaking insane that's not normal.
I don't know. In 2016, was that around when maybe the Twilight movies were?
Dude, people been seeing this, like you said, people have been seeing this shit since they could write stuff on rocks. Probably even before that.
But no, I'm open for it. Like it's not my wheelhouse, but being involved in because like I said, I've been involved for so many years, and I've gone to conventions, I've done the panels, I've done the stuff, and I've done podcasts, I've had guests on, I've had Bigfoot folks. So being around it, it's always fascinated me, and I love history. I love talking about, as you can tell, I love talking about the old scriptures and writings and stuff from the days. I think there's a window into our past, through that history that,
Well,
that showed us more of that world. And science and history don't like to talk about those things. They kind of just like they chalk it up to just fairy
right.
stories, but they don't really want to. They just say, oh well, they wanted to pass on information, but except that's just stories, and that was fun stuff or something. I don't know. They blow it off.
They do. But when you're looking at anecdotal evidence that is uncollaborated but a line, okay? So, for example, like I was telling you, what collaborated with me is people are seeing the same stuff I saw that involved the same incident in my mind. My mom told me the craziest stuff when I was a kid. Like when she told me that these big, huge orbs of light would come down and little men and childlike beings would come out. That's crazy talk.
Right.
But you hear dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds and hundreds of people experiencing the same exact thing. The same thing, Josh. And they didn't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Okay? They have no reason to tell people this crazy crap because it makes you seem like you're nuts, but it drives you crazy at the same time that these things are happening, and you just, if it's therapeutic and cathartic to get these things out and talk about them. So I know people are experiencing these things. There are energy beings, there are something spiritual, something supernatural that's going on with the UFO phenomena, and we don't know what it is. It's probably more ultra terrestrial and more metaphysical than it is actual aliens from the Pleiades or whatever.
And on
So
that note, we're gonna wrap that up. And guys, we're gonna do this last teeny bit of the show left. Guys, we if there's anybody that has any questions for Justin or myself, get them in the comments real quick. Justin, I want you to let everybody know, where can people find you to learn more and to hear all your stories and stuff. Where can people find you?
well, if you want to watch video productions and podcasts that I've done, you can go to YouTube. It's Interface Death Paranormal Research on at YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram. I used to have a website, and it was really expensive. I had a store and everything for years, and I kind of went on hiatus. But that'll be up soon. I'll get it back and running. But all the social medias, Justin Brown on Facebook, Justin Kane Brown on X, YouTube is Interface Death Paranormal Research. If you definitely like watching the videos and the podcast, that's where you're going to find that. You can just contact me on social media. Pretty easy to find.
And when do you do your podcast?
I'm going to start that up soon. I'm not entirely sure. I used to do certain types of formats. I used to do one just like yours on Fridays. I used to have, buddies that and team members to help me do that, called Interface Death Weekly. I had a show that ran for 3 years called My Paranormal Soapbox, and that was really successful. And I actually did a podcast that interviewed people in the paranormal community called the Necromancer Live Show. I don't know if you heard of that, but that kind of went down earlier this year. I tried to keep it going, but after a few years of just pounding away and interviewing
I
everybody,
watched some of it.
So I'm going to come up with a new show. Hopefully it's going to be more philosophical, more, cerebral. I'm going to try to get away from the tech and the science mostly, but I'm going to get into topics like quantum consciousness, like parapsychology, like psychic phenomena, and just trying to answer big philosophical questions. Life after death stuff deals with that. So hopefully I'm going to find either one partner to help do that, or maybe I'll rotate a panel. I haven't decided yet. I know I had some responses and interest in that, but my goal is to actually get a business loan, get an LLC, and do a monetized show, like a legit one. So hopefully that happens.
No, that sounds fun. And of course, if you want to get into some ancient philosophy stuff, man, I love all of the old cultures, learning about them. That's kind of one of my favorite things. Like I said, all the Watchers, fallen angels, Greek mythology, the Sumerians, man. I love talking about that. I think that's a window into the past and to now. There's so much stuff that they talk about that are the same kind of ghost stories. Even the Romans, the Romans were very big into ghost stories and ghosts and things like that. They had experiences, and all cultures eventually end up with like using their powers for divination purposes. And which of course led to the overpower of church eventually, the abuse of their divination powers. And but in any case, it's but yeah, anything you want to talk about that stuff, hey, I'll always be happy to come on and get into some of that fun, this deep dive discussions about some of the past as well and how it relates to the future. Because again, there's things that, again, in the past talk about stuff now, and the ghost stories, and even some of the stuff with when the Nephilim were defeated. Part of the ruling passed from God was that they shall forever be known as evil spirits, and always be here on earth. So it's interesting when people talk about spirits and things like that, and you can even get into whether Satan's real, and like if he's not in hell, where's the devil at? Well, he's here. So there's so many fun topics. I could just talk all night on it. Justin, it's been a blast to have you here. Hopefully we'll get to work together even more in the future. I am going to be passing through Ohio here in November.
Where are you going again?
I'm going to Michigan to film. Second week of November but I've got a whole big opening of I'm going to be gone. I think it's November 9th to the 17th. I'm going to be, so I'll have.
So you're not doing anything in Ohio. You're just going through Ohio.
No, I'm just passing through, but I don't have a set itinerary because the filming stuff I'm doing up in Michigan won't be later until that week, but I'm going up there to visit family as well. So it's kind of a family business trip type thing. It's like I'm going to go visit family, but I'm also going to be filming, so I have a little leeway to as I pass through areas.
You'll definitely going to want to stop, and I know where you're going to stop. So let me know when that's going to happen, when you're going to make arrangements, and I got spots that you're not going to go drive past.
Well, I am going to be probably passing through, and I usually come up. I want to say probably through Cincinnati area, but again, I'm willing to detour a
So,
little bit.
have you been to Serpent Mound?
I'll come by and see you. We'll get a selfie together. Now we'll but I want to say I'm leaving on the 9th. So that day, the 9th, I'll be traveling.
Have you been to Serpent Mound?
No, I have not been to that one.
Okay,
I thought
so
about it though.
that's about 40 minutes down. If you take 32 from Cincinnati and go east, you're going to go to Serpent Mound. Like the whole Ohio Valley is full of ancient burial mounds. And I've done extensive research. I know where they're all at. I can take you on a quick tour of them. You definitely want to go see Serpent Mound. It's the largest effigy mound that dates back to around 500 BCE.
Yeah, no, I saw images, and I even saw some drone footage of it. It's pretty cool.
Dude, there was in 2003 there was a legit crop circle right across the street from it.
I'm that would be pretty cool. So I don't mind because I've been to a lot of places, but there's so many places I haven't been. Like so many places. You think you go to a lot over the years, but then you realize how many other places too. The more you talk to people, like,
Well, you said you were into the
it.
ancient stuff, so.
Oh yeah, well, it's definitely fascinating for me. I just feel like that's when, not to get on another tangent, but I know we're trying to end the show, but I just feel like that's when humans were the closest spiritually. I feel like what you were talking about, we all have that abilities, and whether they're diminished over time or whatever, but I feel like the ancient cultures showed us that. They showed us that we could visually see a lot more with the dead. There was more interaction. I just feel like we were just that much closer, whether the veil was thinner, who knows? But regardless, it just gives you that insight when you look at those ancient cultures, and it really helps to understand the modern stuff that's going on too, because some of it's the same stuff that's going on, same stories. I mean, we got stories from ancient Rome about ghosts rattling chains and making noises. I mean, these are the same things that we're now, so
Yep.
It's crazy. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, later on through the week, we are going to, I'm going to upload the shorter versions of each segment. So you'll have, if you just want to only hear Justin's segment, we're going to have that broke out into its own video. Same thing with the werewolf, and same thing with the photo discussion. So, guys, thank you all so much. Justin, if you want to hang on just a second after the stream ends.
Sure.
Other than that, guys, we'll see you. Don't forget, normally this show is Thursday nights, but because I'm doing these public investigations in October, that's why the show is bumped up to Wednesday. And we started that last week because we had the double filming in West Virginia. So, but all the rest of October will be Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. And then we're going to be going back to the regular Thursday, 9 p.m. And don't forget, Paranormal Underground Magazine, guys. Go get your free year's worth. They're amazing. I'm telling you, you don't want, if you love paranormal stuff, guys, go get that. So we'll see you next week. Bye.